The VHS tape. The thrift store smelled of dust and forgotten memories, its dim lighting casting eerie shadows over the cluttered aisles. Brian, Jenna, Marco, and Lisa were browsing aimlessly, looking for anything interesting to bring home. They had made a tradition of visiting thrift stores late at night, finding amusement in odd knickknacks and outdated media. "Check this out," Marco called from the electronics section. He held up a battered VHS tape with no label, just a strip of masking tape across the front with the word "Watch" scrawled in thick black ink. Lisa wrinkled her nose. "That looks sketchy." "That's exactly why we should get it," Brian grinned. "What if it's some lost indie film or something cool?" Jenna hesitated before shrugging. "Why not? Worst case, it's just a blank tape." They bought it for $1 and drove back to Brian's apartment, excited about their odd find. His place was a small, cluttered studio with an old TV and a working VCR, a relic from his childhood he refused to get rid of. They huddled together as Brian slid the tape into the VCR and pressed play. The screen flickered to life with static before settling into grainy, distorted footage. At first, it was just darkness, punctuated by occasional bursts of white noise. Then the image cleared slightly, revealing a shaky handheld shot of a dimly lit living room. Jenna leaned forward. "Is that my apartment?" A hush fell over the group. The room on the screen looked eerily familiar. Jenna's worn-out couch, her coffee table covered in magazines, even the framed photo of her parents on the wall. The camera movement was jittery, like someone was filming secretly from a corner. "What the hell?" Marco muttered. The footage cut suddenly and a new scene appeared. It was Brian's apartment. The same one they were sitting in. The camera angle was from outside his window, peering in through the blinds. Lisa grabbed Brian's arm. "This isn't funny." "I didn't make this," Brian said, his voice unsteady. The tape flickered again and the next scene sent a chill through their bones. The four of them were on screen, sitting on the same couch, wearing the same clothes they were wearing right now. A wave of nausea rolled over Jenna. How is that possible?" Brian scrambled to pause the tape, but the buttons on the VCR were unresponsive. The footage continued, the shaky camera zooming in slightly. The screen distorted again and something shifted in the background, something lurking in the shadows behind them. A tall, gaunt figure stood just beyond the edge of the frame. Its face was obscured by darkness, but its presence was unmistakable. The camera seemed to get closer, the frame subtly shifting as if the figure were inching toward them. Brian grabbed the remote and pressed every button in a panic. The tape kept playing. On the screen, the figure took a single jerky step forward. Lisa screamed. The image glitched, and for a split second they saw themselves from a different angle, this time from inside the apartment. The shadowy figure loomed over the couch, just behind Jenna's shoulder. A whisper crackled through the TV speakers. A low, breathy sound, unintelligible but filled with menace. Jenna whipped around. Nothing was there. The footage grew more chaotic. The screen shook violently, colors bleeding into each other. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, turning into distorted laughter. Then without warning the tape cut to black. Silence. The VCR whirred as the tape ejected on its own, sliding out as if something inside had forcefully pushed it free. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Marco stood abruptly. "I'm getting out of here." "Me too," Jenna said, grabbing her coat with trembling hands. "We shouldn't have watched that." Lisa glanced at the tape, her face pale. What if it's still watching?" Brian picked up the VHS and stormed to the kitchen. Without a second thought, he shoved it into the sink and lit a match. The plastic casing warped, a foul-smelling smoke curling into the air as the tape melted into a blackened mess. They didn't speak about it again. Days passed. They tried to convince themselves it was just an elaborate prank, some bizarre coincidence. But at night, when they closed their eyes, they swore they could still hear the whispers, crackling through the silence as if the tape was still playing somewhere, watching them, waiting. And in the darkest corners of their rooms, they began to notice shadows that hadn't been there before. A week later, Jenna was home alone when she heard a faint clicking noise from her living room. Her heart pounded as she crept toward the sound. The TV was on, static flickering across the screen. She hadn't turned it on. A chill ran down her spine as the image slowly formed. It was grainy but unmistakable. It was her. Sitting in her living room. Right now. Her breath hitched as the screen distorted, revealing a tall, shadowy figure standing behind her couch. The whispering started again. Her phone buzzed violently in her hand and she nearly dropped it. A message from Brian flashed on the screen. "Check your window." Jenna hesitated, her pulse roaring in her ears. Slowly, she turned her head toward the window. A pair of hollow black eyes stared back at her from the other side of the glass. The TV crackled louder. The whispers crescendoed into a deafening, inhuman wail. And then the screen cut to black. Jenna's scream never left her throat. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe for more.